Better go into low range though. Oh, this is wonderful. Remember that beautiful sighting that James had with the cheetah at Cheetah Plains Pan and the rainbow? We don't have a rainbow, but we've got a similar setup, a spotted cat next to the pan. Not two of them, just one of them. But I'm so happy because we've had a quiet few drives. The leopards have been avoiding us. Oh my goodness, and straight away, he's so dark in colour. He's just over here. Hello, boy. His like, sort of rosettes are quite densely packed together. Hello, boy. Now, I'm going to keep my distance just because I don't know him very well. I don't know him at all. So I need to learn about him, of course, and for me to learn about him means that I need to take everything slowly, keep my distance, and just see what he does next. And he hasn't done anything. He gave us an evil glare a moment ago. And I don't know why, because I couldn't imagine a happier spot next to a pan like this in the lovely morning sun. It is really delightful. And very toasty. I know Sebastian and I are appreciating the sun too. Now, Megan, you said what a nice birthday treat. I have to agree with you. It would have been a bit sort of quite sad, I think, if we hadn't have had a cat for Wild Earth's birthday. So at least we've managed to pull through over here. But what a beautiful looking cat. He, like I said, straight away as I was coming in, whether it's because he hasn't groomed himself, I'm not certain, but his rosettes look very close together, which creates quite a dark sort of pattern on him, which is lovely. But he doesn't have big ears. He doesn't have too many dark markings around his face. So I'm trying to work out how I'm going to start to identify him first go. Now, of course, it's easy to tell with their spot patterns when you can see their faces, but normally that's not the case. When you see a leopard moving, the first thing you aren't able to do is to zoom up close onto their face. Normally they've got their bottoms towards you, or they're slinking through the long grass. So I always look for signs other than just the spot pattern. And like I said, to me, he's relatively small. He's not particularly large, and he's just very dark in colour. But he actually looks a bit untidy. I don't know if you all agree with me, but even just looking down to his paws, it doesn't look like he's done a bit of grooming for quite some time. Young man, you are looking very untidy. Louise is directing today, of course. Louise says that it's just because he's got fluffy fur. That is not an excuse. Even if you've got your winter woolies on, you've got to keep that coat looking slick and clean all the time. Grooming is very, very important for cats, for dogs. Dogs don't seem to do it as much, though. The wild dogs don't seem to groom themselves meticulously, just like the lions and leopards do. But you've got to make sure that you keep all the parasites at bay. Otherwise, you'll find yourself with a bit of an infestation. And remember, he's on his own now. He's not really being seen with Nkanyeni anymore. She's moved off now, and she's left him on his own, which is about right. He's about 17 months old or so, 16, 17 months. That's a normal age from the other leopards that I've seen in the various areas. I know that Karula used to hold on to her male cubs a bit longer, but that's not always the case. And most of the time, it's not the case at all. I've always see the leopards go relatively young. Lions tend to stay at home for a bit longer. They tolerate it a bit more. Now, I'm just pulling my scarf out of my jacket in case you hear some strange things. Yes, it's getting a bit toasty now in this lovely, lovely sun. Isn't he cute? Good morning, Paul. As we sit here and we watch this leopard enjoy his slumber. You have asked this morning, what is a leopard's diet? Well, Paul, it's actually an interesting question, seen as though we're looking at a young male leopard. And the reason why I say that is because his diet is slightly different from that of an adult leopard. At the moment, he is still going after things like terrapins. He'll be catching monitor lizards, trying to catch birds. And if he's able to, of course, he won't say no to a steenbok or a duiker or even an impala. However, at this very young age, and we've got three leopards that are quite young, not extremely young, Khosan and Shongile as well, who have just started taking down bigger prey for themselves. However, in between they fill their diets with these smaller animals. They're not necessarily the most tasty and the most nutritious, but any bit of food, any bit of energy that can be absorbed, well, is needed, even if it is in the form of a stinky terrapin. I'd love to see the dung. And I think Jamie was actually looking at leopard dung that had, I think it might have been shongiles, that was just sort of filled with terrapin scales and all sorts of things, which is really funny. Now, I've seen much footage of Vutomi as he goes and catches his terrapins. I think he's the original terrapin hunter since I've been here. And I know Jamie the other afternoon, we were quite lucky, we had sort of a leopard heaven where she was sitting with this young man and he was diving into the dams, catching terrapins, and then we'd found Tingana, which was quite nice to, of course, see. But look, you see what I mean when I say he looks very untidy? You can see it clearly there. His coat just doesn't look as slick and smooth. Now, it may be the fact that he is getting a slightly thicker coat coming into winter. The temperature in the last week has dropped significantly. We're definitely going to see more fluffy animals. But it doesn't get super cold to the point where your coat should look untidy like that, Vutomi. I think you're being a little bit on the lazy side, and I think you need to pay attention to your looks just a little bit more. But he's not too bothered, and the birds around here don't seem to be too bothered with him either. Now, there's obviously, sitting right near a pan of water, there's lots of bird life. It's a good spot to wait for something to pop up. Now, Christina, you've actually asked Willie get inside of this water to clean himself. No, he won't. What he'll do is he'll groom himself with his tongue, which is quite rough, and will help smooth the coat out, also pick up any little parasites like ticks that he'll then pull off of his coat, and then he'll probably spit them out. So I'm sure they swallow a few ticks every now and then. And then the other thing is to reach places like his face, is that he'll lick his paws and wet his paws, and then he'll use his paws and wipe them across his face. We see the lions and leopards doing it often. Now, the one thing, though, is I want to know, how does a leopard clean itself when it has dived into the mud? I saw a picture, I don't know where it was from, of a leopard carrying a catfish. And literally the only way that you could tell that it was a leopard was because its tail didn't have any mud on. Other than that, it looked like a very emaciated lion. Because obviously the leopards are much smaller than lions. But it was just amazing. And I thought to myself, how is that leopard going to take all of that mud off of its body? It was caked in it. Because just thinking about it logically, I wouldn't want to get a mouthful of mud. So if I were a leopard, they probably don't do this. I would probably go and dive down into a clean bit of water and get most of it off, then wait for the sun to dry me out. But of course I'm not a leopard, and I don't think that they'd do that. And I don't think it would have been a very pleasant experience for that leopard to groom itself after being covered in so much mud. But luckily, young man, you don't have to worry about that. You just need to get your hair a bit flattened. It's really funny to actually see, because every time we've ever come across the leopards, they are always just so beautiful, smooth coats. Always lovely. But he's beautiful, though. He's a lovely boy, don't get me wrong. I'm just nitpicking on the fact that looks like he hasn't groomed himself in a while. It actually looks like he's been electrocuted, the way that his hair is standing up like that. Perhaps he popped his tail into a socket against the wall, because, you know, he likes to hang around in Coral Lodge, this leopard. So possibly that's what he's done. No, he hasn't done that. I'm talking on complete nonsense now. But isn't this cool? There's not another animal in sight other than a couple of crowned lapwings and a few little birds. Now, Rebecca, you've noticed that, of course, he is indeed fast asleep, but what you have noticed is how comfortable he is, and you're wondering if he does feel comfortable sleeping out here around this dam. Most certainly. Because he's young, though, if he does hear an unfamiliar noise or even a louder noise, he may pop his head up and look around. Leopards, of course, are not the top dogs out here, so they still have to look over their shoulders. But yes, the fact that he's got his eyes closed and completely ignoring us as well means that he to some point, he is fairly relaxed. And what I'm impressed about, though, is the fact that the birds are so relaxed around him. Because a leopard of this age, because he is so young, he would have tendencies to try and find eggs and things too. Leopards will literally eat anything that they can get their paws on. So some eggs would be very, very tasty. And the crowned lapwings, I think there's a pipit of some sort, maybe a buffy, maybe an African, a few doves, and nobody is alarming at him. Maybe because they know that he's here now. He's probably been here for most of the morning, is the reason why they've got sick of shouting about and wasting their voices, because he's expressed that he's not going anywhere. And he's come around here either to have a drink or look for terrapins again. He doesn't look particularly fat, so it's a good spot, seeing as though he is a terrapin specialist. This would be the perfect spot to find some terrapins, and hopefully, as the day goes about, the terrapins will forget that he is there and come out and sun themselves on the edge of the bank, which would provide an easier opportunity for this young male to sort of stalk up behind them using the rise of the bank, the dam wall, and then pounce on them and eat them. Yum, yum, yum. I don't know. I don't think I would be eating terrapins. Sebastian, would you eat terrapins?
No way.
No way. They're so stinky. I learnt my lesson the hard way once, where I tried to move on out of the road many, many years ago, thinking that I'm being, so kind and I'm helping animals, and I moved it obviously too quickly, and it just expelled that foul-smelling liquid all over me, and it was fantastic, and I had to continue doing a game drive like that. It was not pleasant. I was retching off the side of the car for most of the morning. It was really terrible. Please, may I have that question again? I didn't quite think. I just heard Jamie talking. And thought that's not Tammy from Ohio. Now, Tammy from Ohio, who had the voice of Jamie for a moment, you're wondering if I thought that he looked thin. I don't think he looks thin to the point where we need to start worrying. At this age, it's awkward. He's a growing young man, so he is going to look a bit gangly at times. Look at Hosanna, for example. Just the last time that I'd seen him before I went on holiday, he was quite short, but very, very stocky. And now since I've seen him, he's sort of grown a bit taller. He doesn't look so stocky anymore. He's sort of filled out, not filled out, but his legs have grown, which is quite nice. And that's what's going to happen. The same thing will happen with Vutomi as he gets older. And even though he is older than Hosanna, he may have not had a growth spurt just yet. We all think that Hosanna is going to be a very big leopard, which I'm hoping is going to be the case. I hope he's going to be another contender eventually to be against Anderson. And of course, Tingana is a big male too. However, he could just be having an early growth spurt. That's another case. Remember, Mom was also feeding him Impala every single day, so he put on a lot of weight like that. We might see that growth rate change slightly, because he's not eating as regularly as he was when Mom was providing the food for him all the time. But we're not going to go anywhere. We're going to stay with this chap and see if he gets up and perhaps tries to catch a terrapin for us. Byron, however, has found himself something very hairy and crawling around. Amy, I think that he must be saving up on some sleep for some long 3-week, 24/7 mission that he's going to be going on, because he's barely moved an inch. He is having the best time of his life right now, and I'm trying to be as excited as I can about a leopard sleeping. But once you've been sitting and watching it for 20 minutes, it is, of course, very, very difficult. But I don't blame him. He does need to recuperate. I'm sure that he was exceptionally busy last night searching for something to eat, and especially when you have many failed attempts, I think it must be quite disheartening. So I don't think only is he tired, he could also be, well, his ego could be slightly bruised as well, and that's maybe why he's just resting up. Now, I've been watching the water very, very carefully as Vutomi is facing the other way. I have not seen one terrapin pop up. I reckon he's completely eradicated every single terrapin that used to live in the Cheetah Plains pan. They do not exist anymore. Terrapins cannot hold their breaths for that long that they don't pop their little nostrils out the water. And I just think that that's quite interesting to see. And I wouldn't mind going to check all the other pans to see if the same thing has happened, if he has very kindly snatched all the terrapins up. Hey, boy? No, not interested. But I just actually can't believe how little he is. He's a very small leopard. I don't think he's going to be particularly big. Maybe he will be... Who have we seen that's not you? Oh, we're lucky. We've actually got big leopards. Mvula's quite big. Tingana's big. But we'll just have to wait and see. But I don't think he's going to be huge. I don't think he's going to be Anderson male huge. Maybe he'll be the size of the resident male down in the southern sector of the Sabi Sands and Sabi, like Mashabeni. He's not huge. Sometimes when he's full, he's got a dewlap, but normally he doesn't. Now, Julie, looking at his pink nose, you're wondering if that nose is going to turn... Kelly, not Julie. Sorry, Kelly. If his nose will turn completely black in time. Most likely, however, we've seen it with Shadow, who's an older girl, and her nose hasn't gone completely black at all. So it just depends again on genetics. Sometimes, most of the time it will, and then it often starts to fade again with age. But we'll just have to wait and see, really. I think it will. Like I said, majority of the leopard's noses go completely black. Maybe he has a bit of pigmentation there, which could cause it to look a bit pink. So that could be another thing that would happen, but I'm not too certain. Actually, he's a bit difficult to see now. You can just sort of see a little bit of his nose, but it's starting to go quite dark. Just a bit of pink in the middle, but the outside of it is definitely changing colour. But he's still quite young, and I'd love to see him up and moving around so I can get an idea of his personality. But today is not my day, and hopefully, young man, I get to see you all, or get to see this boy again. But we're going to move on from him now, and hopefully he'll be here for this afternoon's sunset safari. Byron has got the Scavengers of the Sky.